Hello, Tom Levecchia here with the latest edition of the New Theory podcast today. And I am just south of 300 interviews. I very rarely get this excited for a guest. And this guest has me excited. We have Jason Feifer, who is the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine. He has two podcasts, Built for Tomorrow, which I think he recently changed the name, and Problem Solvers. But more importantly, Jason, welcome to New Theory Podcast. How you doing today?
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
All right. So you're in an important spot in an important time. And I want to give more context to that.
Yeah.
There's been an entrepreneurial shift, whether it be Shark Tank, pivoting for COVID, or insert whatever reason, right? So you've probably by design built your career up where you need it to be, but you're now in a position where you are heading one of the key platforms for entrepreneurs at a key and pivotal time, right?
It's true.
So I kind of want to walk through how you got there, and then as important, what you're doing now with this kind of like in empowerment, if you will.
Yeah, sure. You're totally right. I mean, we are in an entrepreneurial moment right now. Yep. The new business applications in America are at a decade high right now. Yep. And I would argue that we are in the process of creating the next wave of amazing entrepreneurs. My theory is that the 2008-2009 recession created an amazing wave of entrepreneurs, people who realized either because they were in the workforce or because they were young and they were watching their siblings, their parents in the workforce. Correct. They realized the only way that I can create anything that resembles stability is to take control of my own destiny. Yes. That's it. If I rely on somebody else, I'm in a boat going wherever the waves take me. And I think that that is a lesson being learned again by the next generation right now. So I'm really excited to see where this thing goes. I think that if for all the hardship and pain, and I don't mean to discount any of that, that has come out of the last year, what we are going to see is a radical new thinking and also just a shift in consumer behavior. I mean, just think about how, I mean, this is like, this number says it all. Zoom before the pandemic had, I always forget exactly how to, it was 10 million. I think it was maybe max of 10 million concurrent users or per day or something like that. Yeah. And then by April 2020, 300 million, Yikes. 10 million, 300 million. And that tells you a radical shift has taken place in how people work, how they communicate, the tools that they use. And that is all a setup for innovation and for problem solving and for solutions. So I'm really excited about all that. And that didn't answer your question at all about how I got here.
No, I keep going because I have a follow-up question, but you did raise some good points, but keep going, Jason.
Yeah. Well, I'll make it real simple.
Yeah.
I started as a community newspaper I didn't start as a newspaper. I started as a community newspaper reporter in North Central Massachusetts. Cool. I took a lot of risks along the way. I learned very, very early. My first job, I had this realization like a year into it, which was I wanted to, at the time, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to write for the largest publications possible.
Correct.
I dreamed of writing for the New York Times or the Washington Post or something like that. And it occurred to me, and this is, I know sounds simple, but like, you know, this is actually kind of a radical idea. They were never coming to me. Nobody at the New York Times, the Washington Post was ever going to read this dinky article I wrote about the local diner and say, kid, we're bringing you up to the big time. So I had to quit that job and I had to go to them. You can't wait for somebody to come to you. You go to them.
Correct.
And so I quit. I sat in my bedroom for 9 months. I cold pitched every publication, every editor that I could come up with. And I started to build my career by going to people. And that's basically how I did it. I bounced around media a lot. I landed at Entrepreneur about 5-6 years ago. I remade the brand with a focus on entrepreneurs and a broader vision of what entrepreneurs is. I define entrepreneurs as someone who makes things happen for themselves. I redefined myself, and we'll just keep doing it.
So, and I know you were like Men's Health and a few other places.
Yep.
And so you had the chops to take over Entrepreneur, and as editor-in-chief, it is an entrepreneurial endeavor, an entrepreneur and an entrepreneurial endeavor, because you have to take this title and take it to the next level, right? Mm-hmm. So when you first got your first 90 days, what did you start doing? What did you stop doing? And what did you keep doing for the title because you did a lot of great things. I want to see how you got there. So what did you start doing? What did you stop doing? And what did you keep doing?
Oh man, I love that. Start, stop, keep. And I like the 90 days. I feel like it's like a new administration.
That's right. It was the
yeah, it
Feifer
was a new
administration.
administration. So, okay. I came in with an idea.
Yeah.
And that idea was that this brand had an old definition of entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So I guess what did I stop doing? I stopped defining entrepreneurs as small business people.
Like that.
Because that was a when we say small business people, and that's a broad definition by itself, right? But usually you say small business, you think like Main Street entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody running a barbershop, small business. But what I had realized in going around and talking to people was that the word entrepreneur had started to mean so many things to so many people. It was no longer a specific kind of career or a specific metrics of how large something was. It was a mindset. It was an identity. It was something very, very personal. So we stopped talking about the brand as if it was just for small businesses. I mean, obviously it is. It's still like that's our bread and butter, SMBs, small business, but we stopped just focusing on that. What did we start doing?
Yeah.
What we started doing is talking to the one thing that everybody has in common. I realized, because I started talking to all these people, I started speaking at all these events, and I realized that you can get a room full of 100 entrepreneurs who all do something radically different. From somebody who just sells something on eBay and thinks of themselves as an entrepreneur, to somebody running a venture-backed startup in Silicon Valley, to Jeff Bezos.
Correct.
And the one thing that they all have in common is the emotional experience of entrepreneurship.
Correct.
That's it. The problem solving, the feeling completely crazy and lonely and having to constantly reinvent. That is the thing that everybody shares. And so I said, let's live in that space. Let's talk about that. Let's engage people on that. Let's make sure that this brand, every time that we write about anybody, what we're really doing is digging into how they think and how they solve problems. That's the thing. And then, what did we keep doing?
It was a legacy stuff that you said, hey, you know what? I'll protect this. And maybe this is a sacred cow.
Yeah, well, so there are some business answers to that, right? We had always focused on the franchise industry, and we continued to, and there were other things that were in place on a business side that we just simply had to do. But, I guess what did we keep doing?
Yeah.
It's funny. When I was at Men's Health,
Yeah.
So Men's Health is what there's a term in media called service magazine, service journalism. What service means is it's advice directly to you. If you read a magazine and it is addressing you, the reader, in the second person, you should do this is service magazine. And when I was at Men's Health, I honestly, I hated it. I hated service. I found it so boring. I wanted to write these, deep journalistic endeavors. And it came to entrepreneur, and I came to realize that service is what people want here. Entrepreneurs are not reading or listening or doing anything just for funsies, right?
Correct.
They'll do that on their own time. But right now they are looking for information for themselves. But I thought that we could elevate it. I thought that we could, especially in the magazine, we could make it less direct service, and instead we can make it what I call implicit service. So let's tell stories about people, but let's really make sure that the story about them is really a story about the reader. That everything that I'm doing, everything is driving towards understanding how these people made decisions so that the reader can read it and say, so smart, that helps me too. So I came back around to this thing that I didn't like, and I realized that there was value in it, and I found a better way to do it.
Interesting. So when you took the helm, when were you official editor-in-chief, like officially?
I think it might have been September 2016.
Okay,
I think
so
fall of 2016.
So we're going, close to 5 years. And one of the things, and I've been following you. So one of the things I really like that you adopted for the brand is rich media. You got, 2 podcasts going. You guys have the elevator pitch, and it's kind of tangentially involved with you guys, and YouTube channel.
That's a product of ours. Yeah.
Apple TV and a whole bunch of stuff. Gerard Adams had Leaders, Great Leaders, all this great stuff that I noticed you adopted rich media a little before other players. So you, as being a traditional writer and having writers, how did you kind of pivot? Not even pivot. How did you slide over to, hey, corporate guys, I need 5 podcasters, or hey, I need a video guy, I need this, and they're looking at you like, well, you have a writer's room of 100 people. So how did you slowly kind of migrate it over? Because that's not an easy task.
No, it's not. But I will, I enjoy your assumptions about where things, like how people are thinking over there, but I'll correct. So first of all, credit is not credit does not rest solely on my shoulders here. The entrepreneur has a really great team and leadership that is very, very open to experimentation. I mean, the company thinks of itself in a very entrepreneurial way. And our president is a guy named Bill Shaw. And the greatest thing about Bill is that he really pushes everyone to say, well, what can we do differently? Let's try it out. Let's try it out. You got an idea? Let's try it. Can't hurt to try it.
No.
And actually I wish I had a writer's room of 100. We're actually a very small operation, which was a hard thing to adjust to for me at first, because I came from pretty big staffs. I mean, my prior jobs were Maxim, Fast Company, Men's Health, Boston Magazine. I mean, when I worked at Boston Magazine, this was probably 2008, 2007, 2008. My entire job every month was to edit 8 pages in a magazine. I mean, I can't even imagine that today. That's crazy. Right now, I have on staff to make Entrepreneur Magazine. It's me. It's my deputy editor, Steph Schomer, and we have a contributing editor named Liz Brody. And that's it. Those are the editors. I mean, like, that's it. That's the whole thing. It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, then there are other editors on digital, but for print, that's the team.
Interesting.
And so when I first showed up at Entrepreneur, and we had nobody, I mean, comparative to where I had before, where I had this like massive staff. I thought, what do we do? How do I make this? And then I realized the answer. And the answer is you cut out the BS. That's the answer. You cut out the BS. What did I do when I was editing 8 pages a month? What did I do? The answer is that the editor-in-chief would come over to my desk and he had to have printed out some early version of a story of mine, and he'll circle the caption on the photo, and he'll say, I think this can be funnier. And then I would spend the next 2 hours coming up with a long list of captions. And then I would walk it over to him, and I would sit outside his office for half an hour until he had time to look at it. And then he would like maybe circle one and say, okay, let's use that one. And that's what I did all day. So you know what? Get rid of that, because you have to understand what is valuable and what's not. And I have never met a reader in my life who said, the reason that I subscribe to this magazine is because the captions are funny. I mean, never once, right? Never happened. So I'm going to, instead, what's my mandate with my team? If it's your page, write a caption. I'll give it a glance. And maybe if I can think of something better in 3 seconds, I'll do it. And if not, we're keeping that. Like, we're moving along. That's what we're doing. And that's how we did it. So anyway, to your question, it's a pretty entrepreneurial environment. And we want to make sure that we are in front of people wherever we are. We don't have gigantic budgets, but you know what? That's good. I think that's good. Constraints make you creative. You launch, you get creative, you try something out. If it works, you invest in it. If it doesn't, you move on.
Nice. Now I have a small publication, New Jersey Digest. We're team of 4. I'm the publisher. The editor does his thing. He hates me because I'm a typical publisher, but he does his own thing, right? But I always try to wear his hat in terms of, it's like, wear the hat of the editor, right? And and one of the things is, me personally, because we have and the reason why everything's up, we have a print and a digital. Me personally, I could be, and you tell me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm my 2 publisher on this.
Sure.
I'm agnostic on the medium. If Jason has a great story, whether he tells it on his podcast, whether it's a digital piece, or whether it's print, I think it should live in all 3 areas and leave it up to the reader to consume the way they want to, right? And I'm agnostic towards medium, where my editor is like, no, this is a print piece and this is a digital piece. And this, where do you stand? Are you agnostic towards medium, or should stuff be, I guess, catered to channel? And as a good editor, you may say, hey, that goes here and that goes there. I want to see where you stand on that.
So I am also agnostic on medium, but I think that everything has to be organic to the medium. So, for example, I don't think that you publish a story in print and then have somebody read it aloud and call it a podcast. It doesn't work, right? Sure. And the reason it doesn't work is because things are written differently for podcasts and for, I do both, right? I write podcast scripts. I write magazine articles. I would not write a magazine article and then read it aloud, because it's not meant to be read aloud. But I do think that you could take the magazine article and do something with it on the podcast. So, for example, let's say that you run a story in print and it's a great story. Can you do a podcast episode where the editor is talking to the writer about the story,
Yeah.
right? Or can you, or if you've got the time, can you reproduce the story with additional audio? If you recorded your interviews, can you do something where it's scripted and you throw to tape and you have something that sounds more dynamic?
Correct.
I love moving ideas around. I think that's great because I think that you're right. You should be reaching, if you have a good idea, you should reach your consumer everywhere that you can. But you have to make sure that you're doing it in a way in which you're not just doing it lazily, but you're doing it in a way that's going to honor their time, however they're engaging with you. I do this personally too. I will, for example, uh, dash something off on an Instagram story
Yeah.
and then get a lot of good feedback on it, and then take the same idea but write it out for a LinkedIn post, and then that does really well, and then rework it for my personal newsletter,
Yeah.
and then that does well, and then
Yeah.
maybe it makes it into the magazine column, and then maybe it makes it into a part of my keynote speech. So
Like it.
I'm always moving things around, but you got to just you got to make sure that you're reaching people in the way that they want to be engaged with.
That makes perfect sense. So you expand upon a little bit more than you know what, that's perfect. Perfect answer. So going into 2020, you had your operating plan, right? Or assume you did.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to print up this many magazines. We're going to our UVMs, our uniques per month. We want to do this, podcast numbers, etc. And then COVID hit, obviously. So
Yep.
I guess operationally and decisions that you had, obviously you'd have no control of revenue, whether people had advertising revenue, that's not your
Right.
control. But within your control, what did you do? You know, when COVID hit, what changes have you made, and what was kind of the result?
Well, so the company, the first thing that the company did was say, and so again, Bill, the president,
Yeah.
I mean, he said to everyone, look, our goal here is to get through this intact, but that means that we are going to have to squeeze everything.
Yeah.
Right. So what vendors do you not need to be using, or what can we renegotiate? How can we bring down costs as much as possible?
Yeah.
How do we slash budgets without slashing people?
Correct.
And so we did that. And then we also, we canceled the June 2020 issue.
Yeah.
Because that was, you work, we canceled an issue. We work enough, we work 3 months in advance. So this thing starts in March 2020. We're planning the June issue. Yeah. And so we said we canceled. And the reason was because, sorry, you have all these sponsors, and the sponsors are saying, look, we have no idea what's about to happen here, but we got to hold money too right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we held that issue, and then we started diverting resources. So how can my editors, who are normally making a print magazine from the next month, how can we contribute online? Yeah. How can I start hosting webinars? How can I start writing more stories? Yeah. I started a weekly column called Midweek Motivation that went emailed out to everybody. It just went out on our email list. I was trying to do anything possible to connect with people, to use our resources, and to move fast, and to not spend money. And then once we got a better sense of where the economics were going, we were able to adjust, because very, very fortunately for us and for everybody, I think everybody very quickly understood that entrepreneurs are the heroes here. Like, entrepreneurs are going to be the ones that, entrepreneurs and scientists are the heroes, but entrepreneurs are the ones who are going to be rebuilding and building new businesses and getting our economy back on track. And sponsors understood that, and they started coming back to us pretty quick, actually, which was amazing. And so we started to build out, but we maintained that level of alertness to budget. So I scrapped the entirety of we made this, July issue, which is the first one back. We got rid of the structure of the magazine.
Oh, wow.
We reinvented the entire magazine, and then we did it with no freelance dollars at all. Wow. Everything was done in-house. And it was great. Like, we scrapped, and we did everything that we could, and we made an excellent, inventive magazine, frankly, on the cheap. Yeah. And we've just been getting back from there, but at the same time, continuing to be as creative as possible. So now we're in a good place. Sponsorship numbers are very strong.
Good.
We really weathered it. But what we came out with was a renewed focus on being really smart and scrappy and inventive. And I think that's a good thing.
Like, love it. So before we conclude, I've got a few more questions. And
Sure.
I guess the one question I have moving forward, right? Because it's going to take a while to calibrate.
Yeah.
Where are you placing your bets 2021, 2022? You'll be a little more digitally focused. I know we're agnostic, but a little more digitally focused. Are you going to maybe ask your print writers again to continue to print out more digital content? Maybe instead of that head count used for a writer, it might be a podcaster. Where are you going to place your bets in areas that you have control?
So our big bets are, so print is growing.
Yeah.
It's actually growing in revenue, and it's amazing, right? So that we're not taking a focus off that, but yes, growing digitally, focusing on that, focusing on product. That's a big
Product
thing
first.
for us. Product.
Yeah.
How can we develop new revenue sources? And so, for example, some products that we've already come out with, we have something called the Side Hustle Accelerator.
Yes.
Run by this woman named Kim Perrell, and that's been really great for us.
Nice.
We have a number of courses that are in development. We released one called Start Your Own Business.
Nice.
So, and we've got a lot in the pipeline. So how can we create new products that are going to be driving revenue and serving our readers in new ways? And so we're not backing off of the content, but also thinking about product. That's a big focus.
Love it. So before we conclude, what question didn't I ask you that you wish I did?
Oh, I don't know. I guess maybe possibly what is that noise in the background? The answer is a vacuum cleaner. So sorry if people can hear that. I don't know if you can. What did you, I don't know the answer to that. I guess, well, I'll tell you what's the thing that everyone always wants to know, which is, hey, Jason, you talk to wide range of entrepreneurs every day, the most successful people. What's the thing that the most successful people have in common? Fair. And the answer to me is the thing they have in common is adaptability. It's an embrace of change. It's a recognition that change is opportunity. And they're willing to discard what worked yesterday. They're willing to reconsider the impossible. These are the things that I think carry people forward. So, quick plug for me. I have a podcast called Build for Tomorrow, which is really an exploration of how change happens, not through interviews, but through these deep, fun trips through history where I try to take big questions like do good things come from pandemics, and why do people hate being told what to do, and how do you change their behavior anyway? And then I talk to tons of experts. I getting chased out of this room that I'm in right now. Okay. We're just doing this live. This is what it's like, folks. We're just doing everything. So that's anyway, Build for Tomorrow. I'd love for you to check it out.
All right. So Jason, we'll put all your social media profiles below. Jason, thank you for being on New Theory Podcast, and I will speak to you soon, buddy.
Thanks so much.
Ciao.
Take care.